Phoenix on Breeze. I don't know. I was laughing
Phoenix
that
on
some
Breeze
people,
is troll.
yeah,
Like,
some people on Twitter were like, "Oh, but he's gonna catch you off guard."
I think teams fall into this thing where they try really hard to win. And like when you try hard to win, you don't focus on like the game.
Team Liquid, man.
The moment where I get to fucking put my feet up and be like, NA's been looking so fucking good right now. I think this is one of those moments why this week not a single person from EMEA wanted to come on to our show because they just didn't want me to fucking just stab him right into the side saying how good NA has been, right? How good NA has been. But yeah, we're back here for Valoranting. We're still with Rawkus, with Kaplan, with Tanner Metro, myself, Vancil, and it's now time to talk about the groups going into Champions, digest everything that's been going on throughout the past week. And Rawkus, of course, being the coach, you catch up to everything, and you got a lot to say. And let's go through the topics right now. And I think I want to visit them from group to group. At the top of the show, I did had a conversation and ask with Tanner like what he thought about Edward Gaming overall. I unfortunately was a little bit disappointed into Edward Gaming's run. But I wanted to know, Rawkus, for you, what was it like watching Edward Gaming at the international stage after seeing them dominate through the LCQ and East Asia?
Yeah, I was a bit like I had a lot of expectations for Edward Gaming, to be honest, and like what kind of like bummed me out was I feel like they felt the pressure kind of, and they didn't like this is like basic as hell, but they didn't like really perform like how everyone expected them to perform. Like they had a lot of like really good ideas in my opinion, and I think like individual mistakes like kind of cursed them, and that's like that was really disappointing. But like every team needs those like moments to show like how good they could potentially be. Like no one's gonna initially go into their first tournament ever and just like perform to the max. Like it's just there's a lot of pressure. Plus it's like the biggest tournament of like honestly all of their careers. Like this is champs. This is the final tournament of the year. This is what you've worked for. There's a lot of pressure, and I think like it just kind of caught up to them. Yeah,
for sure. I think when we're looking at Edward Gaming, they were like basically a PRX on crack, or basically playing very a similar style to Paper Rex. And actually, it's actually quite a coincidence and nice that we have you on here, Rawkus, because a lot of people would probably think that, you know, FaZe could be the North American version of Edward Gaming and Paper Rex when you guys were still together in that past iteration. Do you feel that it was a very similar playstyle to that sense when we coined the schmeeging in North America here?
I think the way PRX plays is really similar to like how we used to play when I was playing on FaZe. It's a lot of individual decisions and like basically individual duels and stuff like that, but also comboed with utility. But I think PRX has like way more of like a creative idea behind how they play. And I think like to go back to the previous question about like Edward Gaming playing to their full potential, I also think they played like honestly two really good teams. Like they probably had the hardest schedule out of every team, compiled with like the pressure. Like they played PRX, and PRX showed they're like no slouch. They're extremely good. And then Liquid also like very good. Like there's just two really good teams, and it's just unfortunate, I guess, for them.
Yeah. Hey, man, even then, we talk about those two teams, but I think that the surprising one, too, is Leviathan making it out of groups with the way that they play. So, Kaplan, like, what impressed you looking at Leviathan compared to even the last run? Because the last run at Masters 2, yeah, they had a pretty decent event. They didn't have Owner with them on the main stage. Was Owner really the main difference right now, looking at Leviathan's performances? Not that they're all together on stage, or is there more to Leviathan's playstyle that maybe they don't need Owner at all when you were observing their performances?
I mean, I definitely think he brings a lot of value, right? Like this guy's for sure proven himself as a coach. He's ended up at international lands on different teams at different points now. And I also feel like when it comes to bringing in staff, you get a lot of value in the matchups they had in groups. Like I think that, you know, the haven between Leviathan and Liquid can kind of go anyway. Like everybody plays this comp. There's not a lot of anteing, but it looked like they understood how to play around the Phoenix pretty well on Ascend. And then especially playing against PRX, like as a coach, sometimes it's frustrating to watch PRX. Like just because a lot of the things they do are not by the book and are the kind of things you look to yell at your players about as a coach. And Leviathan looked really prepped to dismantle it. Like I know that you know it was double-digit games, but they were really patient. They were punishing PRX's pushes. They're playing like so slow, and I think you know that's like exactly what you want to coach for, right? When you have a team that gets punished by Ante, you're going to be glad to bring a good coach in to help you out with it.
Yeah. I want to jump in, and I also thought that Leviathan do a great job of like kind of letting especially in the PRX series, letting PRX think that they had won, like in certain situations. And I think back to one thing specifically, it was Takolia inside showers, who it just gets like just tanks a prowler just because, and then has the timing, peeks out, right clicks, gets a kill. And as a Fade player, you're thinking, oh, I've got this guy hammered, you know? And so I think they did a really good job of kind of lulling PRX in, thinking, okay, it's working, and then I don't know where it's not working.
No, for sure. And then looking at Leviathan playing so well and being able to almost anti-strike Paper X, what does this say about Paper X right now, Tanner? Do you think that they're basically a red right now, that they need to change the pace, like playing their own game, which is basically playing that aggressive style, doesn't net them into the easier bracket that everybody expected them to get out of, because they're supposed to be a second place, at least a runner-up going into Champions, if you're looking at how they played last Masters.
Yeah, and I might get crucified for this, but my pick'ems are ruined. Whatever, man. I don't care anymore. Yeah, I think Paper X had this phenomenal Masters 2 run in Copenhagen. I mean, just like we saw FaZe, right? Nobody was ready for what FaZe was bringing to the table back in the day. And Paper X did that same thing, where nobody's ready for what Paper X are doing. And now I do feel like Paper X kind of had, you know, the zoomies in Masters 2, and the zoomies was kind of fun, and it worked for as long as it did it. And now here in Champions, teams are just like, okay, they've got the zoomies. We're just going to let them tire themselves out. Eventually they'll lay down, I promise. And then they just take advantage of it. So I feel like that's kind of what's happening, is that they're doing a little too much. And I think it is a little, like, before it was unpredictable. Now it's like, well, we know what they bring to the table. It looks similar. I do think that they might make it out of groups. Team Liquid, man. What are Team Liquid doing, guys? Come on.
What are Team Liquid doing, Rawkus? I mean, what's your thoughts on Scream playing a Phoenix on Breeze?
Yeah, okay, I'll be honest with you. I'm not a fan of Phoenix at all. Like, I think there's just better characters in the game to play. So, like, why not play the better characters? Like, I understand comfort picks in the end of the day. Like, we were talking about that a bit before. But, like, I think it just comes down to one of those things of, like, Phoenix or Scream is just like, I want to play Phoenix, and you're not going to tell no to Scream. I think that's... I think that's, like, kind of like a problem, but I mean, like, I don't know. I don't see how Phoenix is better than KO. But I don't know. I don't know exactly what Team Liquid's doing. I don't know exactly their ideas. I always know every single team is completely different. Like, everyone has their different ideas. Like, I'm not really one to, like, hard critique people, because, like, we also, like, when we were playing in LCQ, we lost in certain things. Like, everyone has their ideas. Sometimes they don't work out, and they just look wrong. Like, I don't know. I'm just not gonna, like, start drama in that sense.
Of course, no. I
kind of wanted to go back to the question we were talking about Leviathan. Like, Leviathan, they actually looked really good in their previous event. I don't think people realize that they were, like, very close to, like, eliminating Fnatic. Like, they were, like, like, barely, like, I forgot who ended up, like, clutching, but I remember it was on Bind. It was, like, crazy clutch. And then Leviathan gets eliminated. It goes to OT, and then, like, that's it. But, like, that team looks
Enzo
good.
went wild.
Yeah, it was. Was it Enzo? Yeah, it was something like that. It was crazy. It was, like, on B site. I remember it, like, vividly. But, like, in my opinion, like, I think they're actually, like, a sleeper team. I think they are really good. I think they have a lot of good things. And then also compiled is that they were kind of expecting what PRX was doing. PRX kind of has that, like, that was our problem on phase 2. Once teams, like, expect you to be doing that, it's very hard to replicate, like, the surprise success of, like, being explosive or crazy or unpredictable. Like, once you expect that, you don't make as many mistakes against it, I guess. That's the best way to explain it. And I think you can see the difference between, like, FaZe's run going into the qualifications for Copenhagen versus their LCQ run. It, like, you can see, like, the same, like, mentality of they had the same idea, but teams were just more prepared for it, I guess. That's the best way.
Yeah. No, I can see that. Yeah. And of course, with Liquid having to play, like, their own style the way that they want to, is basically how you guys were for a bit too before going to LCQ, where, you know, you got a lot of flack of being like, oh, when are you guys going to change your comps? When are we actually going to see a chamber? When are we going to see XYZ? But whatever works for the team and where you're feeling comfortable was where you wanted to head towards to in the first place. But we saw those changes happen for LCQ. We saw the triple initiator being utilized on maps like Breeze, for example, where there's a little bit of comfort picks, but there's also following to a meta. And what I like, at least from Liquid, is their off picks right now is trying to define, I guess, their own meta based to their comfort picks. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It barely worked on that Breeze game there versus Edward Gaming. And we're hoping that it's going to work versus Paper X, so we'll see. But Let's move on into Group B. All right, Les Kaplan, you're fucking smiling because I don't know if you got something to say before we move to Group B.
No, I'm with you. I mean, there's comfort, and then there's just playing better agents, and you're a Valorant player.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
all right, Phoenix on Ascent, comfort, like yeah, he's not that bad, but like Phoenix on Breeze, I don't know. I was laughing
Phoenix
that
on
some
Breeze
people,
is troll.
yeah,
Like,
some
that-
people on Twitter were like, "Oh, but he's gonna catch you off guard." Like, okay, what? He's gonna flash through walls, and he's gonna have an extra. Like, oh, I've never seen that before.
it's stuff you expect in range, man. Like, it's-
We saw that one round where he actually threw a hot hands into B main through a Viper's orb, right? So that was like, oh shit, ability combinations, that's gonna work. Anyways, we'll see. Hopefully they prove us wrong, but it definitely. I don't know. Sliggy's very adamant that that Liquid could still make it to the finals. So if he's thinking in a different, maybe he's biased because he used to be Liquid. I don't fucking know. Let's go into Group B. It's kind of like the obvious group, right? When you're looking at this group, it's kind of like, okay, Optic Gaming, Loud, they're going to qualify technically. But what are our thoughts right now on Loud, and what are our thoughts on Zeta Division's performances so far? Is this going to be a closer match than we expect, where maybe Loud could get upset here by Zeta Division? Starting with you, Kaplan.
No, I don't think so. I think Loud have it in the bag. I think they look pretty good so far. And I think that Loud took him out earlier. I don't think Zeta look like they're getting really experimental with comps. Like I don't see them pulling out something in the the week time span here that's going to throw Loud off pretty heavily. I feel good about a Loud 2-0 right there.
Okay. And what about Boom Esports now in their performances? I mean, they were able to take a map off Optic here, Tanner, and at the same time, it was a map that went back and forth on Breeze until like an 18-16 overtime, where somebody finally won. I think was like an attacking round, because it felt pretty defender side at some point. Is it just the normal Optic having slow starts at tournaments, or did Boom actually show more than they had in the tank versus their performances in the APAC qualifiers?
I do think. Man, now that I'm thinking more about it, was it just, and I might Tabottle? Is that how we're pronouncing that one? I think
it's
that
Bottle
guy,
T, basically his name.
I think that guy showed up and was like, I don't give a shit who we're playing, what round we're playing, what our group looks like. That dude came up and just whipped it on against Optic, and I think that's the best time to do it, because like you said, Optic do start slow. I think Optic a lot of the times, one of those teams where I'm thinking like, well, Optic's the best in tournament, but fuck, are they on today? Like we've seen Ye have like really sluggish performances, and so that was kind of my first initial thought into this. And then you have this player, the Viper no less, right? The person who's going to be anchoring this B site, and he's just shitting on Optic. But I do think it was just a slower start, and a star being born in Tabottle really showing up against Optic. I'm going to be paying attention to this guy's name moving forward. But I think Optic were always meant to win that one. I think Optic were always meant to make it out of this group. They were just, NA, we just like to make it, exciting and fun and all that good stuff.
Keep my hopiums up here, Rawkus, because I'm gonna ask you about Jimmy right now. So Marv, for a lot of these, I mean, myself included, a lot of people put Marv probably at the top of the world right now in terms of players in Valorant. But unfortunately, in the series against Boom and also the series against Loud, it was a fairly slow, even tournament for Marv to start things off until the third map. So tell me about Marv. How does he turn this around? What's he like outside of the game that he's going to fucking turn up starting tomorrow again?
I think regardless of his performance, I think Marv is still the best smokes player in the game. Like, I genuinely think that the way he views the game, the way he communicates, plays the game, like just having experience with him, I don't care if he has a slow tournament or not. I think that's a product of just your team. And I think like the reason why Boom looked like kind of surprised Optic in a way was, I think like it's not like, it's a little bit, in my opinion, like a respect thing. Like I think they obviously think they're the best team in this tournament. You have to think that way if you're gonna win. I think they kind of got caught off guard. But like it also like it shows like some like humility once you like do like get surprised by a team like that kind of. So I think like they're all gonna like, for this playoffs run, they're all gonna be like super locked in. I think that's not gonna be an issue anymore. I think Jimmy is, or Marv rather, is just gonna be like, I think he's gonna be on fire. I think that whole team is gonna be on fire. Jimzo, that's I have him named Jimzo and everything, like Discord, Snapchat, but no, I think that was more so just like a slow start, and I think you kind of want to have those slow starts and win, because then like it just won't happen again. Get that out of the way quick early in the tournament, and I think it's just good going forward. Yeah.
I think it's also a good thing too, like to have a slow start but still have your team win and win the series and qualify through gives you. I think it relieves you a little bit of that pressure too, going into the playoffs, to be like, okay, it's not always just on me to have like these heroic clutch moments like he kind of did into the last Masters, and we don't have to fully always rely on his flank game and stuff like that as well, or his anchor play. So I think that's going to help a bit going into the playoffs too. So I believe in that as well, and that Optic is going to continue to make it pretty far in the brackets. But speaking of the brackets, let's switch over to Group C, and I want to focus, of course, with the elephant in the room, which is how Exit has been looking so fucking good in their past 2 matches against Xerxia. Maybe it was more on maybe should we stop calling Xerxia a dark horse, but let's focus on Exit first and talk about their run here at Tanner Metro. What impressed you about Exit so far?
Yeah, I mean, Exet, another team where I'm like, are they on today or not, right? What does Cryo look like on the day? Because I feel like a lot of their success is based off of that. And maybe somebody else was feeling that way. I don't know. That somebody else might be BCJ. Maybe when you get naturals made on you, you just have incredible performances because it didn't matter how anybody else played. BCJ just on the tournament it is just going absolutely bananas. But then to that point, everybody else looks great, right? This team looks like they're firing on all cylinders. I think the one player who might look a little bit slower, but is always like anchored in consistency, he's just not fragging out like the Zoomers are, is Aaron, but he's still as consistent as can be. Yeah, exactly. He gets his one, and Exet really showed up. And I think this says a lot about, I don't know, I guess the next generation of gamers, because I put so much weight. I've said it 2 times. This is the 3rd time saying it. I put so much weight into a lot of these players never experiencing a stage this large. And so I thought maybe they scrape up a win over Xerxia, and then they probably just lose out from there. But I'm surprised and gladly so that North America is doing so well. There was no pressure. It was like there was no pressure. I don't know if the banana phone was doing it or what, but I mean, these guys, they just didn't crack at all. And I was expecting some cracks.
Yeah. I mean, sorry. I think both Rawkus and Kaplan, you guys both had your mouths open. So let's start with you, Rawkus, and then we'll go over to Adam after.
Yeah. So I just think that, like, I think Xset has always been that type of team that they need the experience in order to perform. So like they had that like curse where they were always like a top 4 team. And I think that was more so to like, I think they just fall into like nerves, I guess. I think they need the Copenhagen experience essentially to do well at champs. Because I don't think they performed well in Copenhagen. Obviously they didn't. Like they bottomed out, right? But I think this run, like you're talking about like BCJ and you're talking about like Zekin and Cryo and like all of them just like coming together and playing well. You'll see a lot of that, I think, going forward. I think they are a good team. I think they just fall I just think they fall nervous, and I don't think they're nervous this run at all. I think they're very confident in themselves, and I think they're actually one of the teams that are going to like go forward like pretty far, in my opinion.
I almost agree with you. Yeah.
I agree. I think confidence is a big thing. Like I want to point out that I think they're looking a lot more confident with how flexible their roster is. Like, first of all, these players can just play everything. Like Zekin can play Raze and Neon at a world-class level. He can play KO. Cryos this insane chamber. He whips out the Jet. BCJ picked up Fade quicker than I think a lot of info initiators did. And he's just playing like Omen on multiple maps, looking good. And I feel like they're finding more confidence even in their comps now. Like, if you look at Copenhagen, I don't think it was a bad thing, but they played like really safe meta comps. In fact, like a little bit arguably like behind the meta on some maps like Haven. And now they're getting wild. Like a lot of people feel a need to run Viper on Pearl. Here they are not running it. And like their Fracture comp, it's like, I love it. It's like they took the Omen from FPX comp. They took the Sage from the old school comp and the Neon from the Optic comp. And they just chucked like the 3 kind of meta comps and they just like put them in one. And I think they just look ready to do whatever they want and go really far. I agree.
They definitely look so good on Fracture that they got shit on by fucking artists.
Yeah, true.
+19 on that fucking map.
Look, I'm not saying it's a perfect comp. I'm just saying they're confident.
Okay, okay.
They're definitely more confident that they're running like Copenhagen, and that's why like this game is all about confidence. Like if you're confident in your decision making, you're gonna hit your shot. You're gonna make the right decisions. Like they need to be confident in order to go far, and then the preparation will come with it. So
I definitely agree with you guys when it comes down to their confidence, because their round, again, going back to that round 24 against Leviathan when Melzer fucking ulted into A heaven, and then everything became a shit show and they smoked each other out. Translated into now, they were like, those swings that they had on Pearl on 2v1s wasn't like separate ones either. It finally came down into fundamentals of being like, okay, we're swinging together, we're getting to perfect spacing, and we're making sure that we guarantee onto the kill. And what I also love was that they didn't play further back. So when you're talking about the mental game here, Rawkus, into like, for me, they had an issue with like closing out games when they had leads, or just maintaining the confidence once they have a dominant lead or a dominant game. And they were actually able to maintain that very, very highly throughout the whole series. And that confidence to stay way up that way and to swing the way that they did. I mean, I think even sometimes BCJ just runs in on Pearl and gets a 2K before FPX can get a plant. Like those type of plays where you don't give a fuck because you know that you're able to frag the way that you can and to your full potential. It shows into a very, very scary team for Exit. So I'm very much looking forward to Perk 30, Fish Fillet, and everybody else moving into the playoffs. And that said, it sets up for actually a very fun elimination match to see who's the second team that qualifies between Crew and FPX. Because both of those players went out on Twitter or wherever right after to say, we're not going to lose ever again throughout the playoffs. So who are you favoring going into this head-to-head now, Rawkus?
This is gonna be like controversial, but I really like Crew beating FPX. To be honest, I think Crew is like a very momentum based team, and I feel like FPX is gonna try really hard. Like I think teams fall into this thing where they try really hard to win, and like when you try hard to win, you don't focus on like the game. I don't know, it's hard to explain, but like you just have to trust what you're doing is gonna work. And I think FPX is gonna be like trying to prove that they can like repeat what they just did in their past run. And I think Crew is like a very momentum based team. And I think they're just going to start off like very hot and they're just going to run with it. And then I also think Xset it's just going to be Crew Xset. That's just my personal opinion. Yeah.
Oh, by the way, Rawkus, let me know if you have to leave any time throughout the show right now, right? Because apparently there's like a breaking news source that partnered Valorant teams are required to turn in their early roster submission before a soft, like just like a soft roster lock. So if you need to go set in your submissions, let me know.
I might have to go in the next like 10 minutes.
but yeah, Adam, what do you think about the head-to-head between Crew and FPX here?
I think it's going to be a banger of a match. I'm like more interested in the vetoes than usual. I watched I really enjoyed watching the Crew FPX Icebox. I felt like there was a bit of a comp diff. Like the KO looked really good from Crew. I like what Xset does with the KO Raze, but Raze no KO looked kind of awkward from FPX, and it looked like they kind of just skill gapped them, and it was a really tight game and closed it out. And then Crew go on to play Icebox the next day, basically, right? So it's going to be interesting. Like, I always love those vetoes because as a coach or IGL, it's so hard to decide, like, you just lost this map to this team and then played it and, like, gave another VOD up. Do you want to pick it again? Do you want to switch it up?
Right.
I can't tell what's going to go and happen with this series, but I'm really curious to see if, like, either team switch anything up.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. We were talking about rematches. Like if you're looking at all of these groups, I think there's only Group A that doesn't have any, or Group B, sorry, that doesn't have any like team rematches, right? Or am I wrong here? Maybe it's C and D could be the rematches, as 100 Thieves and Fnatic will have to replay against each other as well. And let's get on to that one too. The 100 Thieves versus Fnatic going into Group D. Like for me, that was that group of death. So what are your thoughts looking at this series overall here, Tanner? Because again, we had that Pearl matchup with two different types of lineups. One comp playing with a Viper, one comp playing without, if I'm not mistaken, looking at this one too. And then overall, how does 100 Thieves look? Does it look promising that they'll make it out of groups?
Yeah, so coming into this, my initial thoughts, again, I picked against 100 Thieves, just thinking experienced Bucks, like Fnatic got it and 100 Thieves don't, especially, at the highest, the largest stage that you could be in. But I did think, and this was kind of in my back pocket all the time, so I could prove that I'm still an NA fan. I thought that this would be if there could be an upset or what I would consider an upset, it would be 100 Thieves over Fnatic because they're two teams that come into a series so incredibly prepared, and then it's just preparation versus preparation. And when you look at what 100 Thieves have for like a coaching staff and just their players alone, it wasn't it wasn't the Derek show where he had to clutch every single round to win everything. I think their preparation played a big part, especially looking at them bringing Pearl into the mix. They were also one of the teams, like you said, they bring in the Viper. They had different looks. They had better looks than EDG's Viper, that being 100 Thieves. I thought it looked awesome. And I did think that, if they could beat anybody, it would be Fnatic. And maybe they would struggle against a team that gets a little more silly or plays a little more loose. Going into the rematch, though, again, I'm not 100% on this. Kaplan talking to like the vetoes and stuff, and maybe you would have a bit more insight, or even Rawkus here, about like, what do you do when you have such a close series and you're rematching another team? Are you looking to completely veto differently? Like, I feel like it gets really scary right here. It's murky waters like this Viper's pit.
You could go first. I can go first. It's up to you. You pick.
I'll go first, I guess. I think it's hard to say. Fnatic's in a spot where I trust their game plans are really good, and I think they're just having a hard time looking comfortable. Like they've looked a little shaky. They've been really scrappy. It looks like they're making a lot of smaller mistakes and dropping the ball and executing. I think in a weird way you can feel kind of comfortable playing similar maps to what you've already played when that happens, because you haven't shown your perfect playbook yet. And it's harder for a coach to sit there and hard ante it when frankly you're not executing it as well as you'd like to be. I really hope to see a Pearl rematch just because I love watching the Neon Pearl.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it's interesting, like looking at the Pearl, like Neon going into a Raze, Sage, and a Viper and an Astra, like that's like the scariest defense comp I think we've seen yet on Pearl. So it's a tough matchup. But at the same time, like if you watch how 100 Thieves played, it was like a bunch of really set gimmicks and specific post plants. So they're gonna have to, I think like both have such stacked coaching staff. I have so much respect for Sean, Mike's, and Minnie, and they're all going to have to kind of like watch out for showing each other the same looks.
And then, like for me, I think what he said about like not executing your plan to the fullest like extent. Like if you make a lot of mistakes, essentially, like you can run that map back and not feel like any pressure to being anti-shotted. And then sometimes like this kind of happened to us. Like we kind of going back in LCQ, like we kind of anti-shotted 100 Thieves, expecting them to do different things. They did the same thing. Like they did the same exact thing over and over. And that stuff, like those kind of little things just like screw you over more in the end of the day. So like sometimes don't be too afraid of like other teams anti-shotting, even if they like target anti-strat other teams like in the past. You just have to run your game plan and like have the information to know like what they're gonna do, and like for them to know that like kind of, I guess it's like a mind game. It goes back and forth, but like I don't think you should avoid a map because you've shown too much on it, in my opinion. That's my take on it, like always.
Especially if you haven't shown it at its best, right? Like
exactly,
you need to trust that like what you should focus on if you haven't shown it its best is like making sure you show it best next time.
What I also like is the performances of Will. I think that was like one of the big question marks as well for this player going into Champions 2. And I actually had a chance to like have a small conversation with DDK as well to just praise on the performances of Will. And apparently he's been working in the back ends with like the psychological game of like the mental, because let's face it, he had big shoes to fill, having to play potentially like Asna's role in Asna's previous roles in 100 Thieves, and then he had to potentially try to go into the opping role, creating space for the team when you had to play against for a prestigious roster such as 100 Thieves that had the Nitros, the Ethans, the Hikos of the world joining that. So it kind of got to his mind. But I think he definitely showed here at this point that he will not crack under pressure. Maybe he didn't look like he had the best breeze overall when they were trying to play that game versus DRX. But again, I feel it was just one of those moments where the execution wasn't as clean as you want it to be, as you were mentioning here, Kaplan, for 100 Thieves. So I definitely do see a rematch that could lean towards 100 Thieves. Because again, if you want to look back into the Fury versus Fnatic game, there's been moments and times where, Fnatic doesn't look like the best currently, like the best team in EMEA either. And I want to know at this point, are they having an issue where they're having that mental block on that big stage where they can't perform like they want to, as they want to online? Thoughts here going into this, Kaplan?
Wait, sorry, I'm sorry. Can you clarify the question? A
Yeah,
little,
just
the
just
last
for
part?
just for Fnatic going into international stages, are the nerves getting to them?
Um, like I mean, I'm sure they're not getting nervous about being on an international stage itself. Like they've had a ton of experience on that already relative to a lot of these teams. It's hard to imagine that, but and this is all just guessing. I can see how it would be frustrating if you're feeling really confident in scrims. You didn't have an LCQ to compete in, so it's been a little bit since you played in a tournament, and it's frustrating to be like an overdog or have a really high standard for yourself, and they have a really hard group. And
Mm.
I can see how maybe what happens is it's not going as well as you expect it to, and then it's really easy to get frustrated quicker than if you were like a huge underdog team.
Mm-hmm.
But who knows?
Well, in that sense too, you're also a team that was undefeated on Icebox, right? At
Yeah.
8-0. You're playing against Furia. You're still using the same comp, but they found great ways to shut you down. And at that point, does it start getting into your mind to be like, oh shit, do we need to start banning Icebox? Do we need to start figuring out how we could change a little bit into Icebox? Is there something under the sleeve? As a coach right now, Rawkus, do you think there's going to be potentially another comp to add variation into their undefeated Icebox map so they could actually have like one of these off picks against 100 Thieves?
No, I think they're so invested into that comp, and they know that they know by stats that they're the best team on that map. They lost it, but like you can't just swap your comp after like playing it for so long. Like, with like the limited time that they have, they just won't be able to. But
Yeah.
I think they won't ban it either. I think they'll leave it as like a floater pick
Yeah.
against teams going forward. But like who knows? Maybe they'll just pick it and they'll just like big dick it. Like you never know. I think for them, like I don't think they're like Kaplan said, they're not nervous to play on stage, but I think they're focusing like they want to win so badly that they're not playing to their fullest like potential, or they're making a lot of little mistakes and stuff like that. And like it just kind of hurts you more, I guess, when you like just trust the process, trust that your preparation is good, trust that you're the best team, believe in it, and like just manifest that. Like
Yeah.
you'll perform way better than like focusing on not making mistakes. Because like you can't like when you're playing in these like international tournaments, the biggest tournaments, the players that have like these crazy pop off potential, like for instance, like we were talking about like Boom and Optic. I
Yep.
forgot his name, the Viper player. Like
Yep.
that guy is not afraid to die. He's making plays. He's gonna put it like he basically is just going for it. Like he's doing stuff like with the like just no fear. And like if you play like that, but also play like structured, like trust your individual decision making, like you're just gonna like run away with it, like run away with matches. And I think that's like why PRX in the previous tournament showed like a really good like performance. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so even then, like even Anders was mentioning in chat because I wanted to bring that up too. Like in between rounds,
Yeah.
Boaster's setting up doing jumping jacks, just to like relieve the stress in the middle of the game. So for me, it kind of feels like the jitters are there, and following the advices of Rawkus and Kaplan, you got to trust the process and make sure that you have that mentality that you are the best, that you are a favorite to win champions, to finally prove that into the server as well. So we've had slow starts from Alphair in Copenhagen, so I'm hoping that they. You know what? I'm not hoping it, because if they start popping off, then they're going to eliminate 100 Thieves. So let's just keep it the way it is. Just keep doing your jumping jacks, Boaster. I love you, but let's just keep doing jumping jacks here. Let's move on into looking at the playoff bracket, actually. And I want to pose you the question here, Tanner, because I want to ask your thoughts about DRX. Do you think they're just going to be just a group stage team once again? Because now that they've made it into the quarterfinals, they made it out of their groups, their potential opponent could be Fun Plus Phoenix or Crew Esports. What are our chances for DRX to finally remove the group stage curse?
Yeah, I would love. Damn it, man! If not for me and for DRX fans, for Achilleos, I would love for DRX to do well. But I do think they are looking at a couple of the strongest teams coming in. I think the only chance that DRX really have, and this is maybe me not looking deep enough into it, but is that they are, if FPX win over Crew, if they win over Crew, that FPX come into playoffs a little flustered, right? Already having lost a series, they didn't do that previously. They hadn't lost, what was it? They hadn't lost a breeze with Suigetsu, and they just lost the breeze, I think it was. So I think they have a chance against a flustered FPX. If Crew beat Fun Plus Phoenix, I think there's no shot that that DRX beat Crew. Rawkus had already mentioned, just how momentum based this team is. Crew just got a nice little tune-up series, although 2-1, a nice little tune-up series where Kesnit just went bananas against Xerxia. For DRX, I think, hey, I salute you, gentlemen, but I think that's as far as you go, unfortunately.
Okay, well, let's look back at the brackets here, and we'll go through our predictions, because I think we're getting towards the end of the show right now. And I want to know, actually, if we're looking back at the brackets, if I'm not mistaken here, guys, all of NA is on the same fucking side of the bracket, right?
Yeah, it's fuck, man.
See, now let's
Every
all
time.
collectively be NA fans here and just fucking mauled. So, Rawkus, your thoughts now? All of NA on the same side. Will it still be a potentially an all NA Grand Finals, looking at the performances so far of Optic, XSET, and 100 Thieves?
It's hard. It's hard because they're all on the same side. I want to say it's not going to be an all NA finals, but I do think an NA team will be in the grand finals. The team that I have to pick, obviously, like just track record. I think Optic will be in the grand finals. I just don't know who they will. There's like who they will play against. There's so many good teams right now. It's like it's hard. It's really hard to decide. I was like looking at the bracket. I'm like trying to think of myself. I'm just like. I just don't. But then I also see a world where like there's a chance that Loud upsets Optic. Like I just don't know. Like it's weird. Like it's hard. But like we'll see. I don't know. I can't predict both grand finals teams, but I do think Optic will slide in there. I think they are better than the other NA teams. So I think when they play each other, they're just gonna run away with it.
And then we potentially have an XSET versus 100 Thieves if 100 Thieves are able to get the, I'm going to call it the upset if they're able to beat Fnatic for sure.
Yeah.
Kaplan, what are your thoughts on the XSET versus 100 Thieves? Do you think XSET is going to pull what Optic did to XSET, what XSET will do to 100 Thieves if they meet up against each other in the quarterfinals here?
That got confusing.
Easy. Optic owned XSET. Will XSET own 100 Thieves?
I don't think there will be an owning. I think it'll be a 3-map series for sure if that happens. And it'll be heartbreaking that they have to play each other so early. I guess I would edge in favor of XSET. I don't know. It's impossible. I think it's a toss-up in a 3-map series for sure. But I do agree with Rawkus that I'd pick Optic as the favorite out of the three of them for sure. Especially you're halfway into a tourney. You got to adapt mid-tourney. You're in playoffs. Like, it's not Optic's first rodeo. So
yeah,
it's going to help a lot.
Yeah, and in my opinion, there's no better team than Optic for adapting. Like in this tournament, Optic has shown that they can go down in a series and just come back. Even down in a map, they're down like 8-9 rounds in a series or in a map, and they just come back. Like they're very good at adapting. They're very good at like understanding. Like when they're down, they keep themselves in the game no matter what. Like they just trust themselves. So
if we continue with the NA hopium that XSET beats 100 Thieves in Group D and Optic continues into the bracket, so we potentially have an Optic versus XSET here, Tanner. And XSET is one of those teams that actually beat Optic into the Group 2 playoffs, right? But of course, we're gonna put a little asterisk with COVID out there too. But do you think they're gonna be that team that's gonna be able to upset Optic and knock them into the lower brackets? And who do you have going into the grand finals?
Dude, Vans, can we just make it? Can we just not talk about? I don't want to bet against North America, and I don't want to bet against North America against North America. That's what I don't want to do. It makes me. I'm sad either way, man. I'm too emotionally invested in how good we look this year, and we can finally bring it home. Now I think. Oh man, there is a world where XSET beat Optic. I think that's going to be one of those things though that Ye has to be having a god awful day. Victor also needs to be on that same boat, and both Zekin and Cryo and BCJ, the performance that he's been having, right? These two teams have been are those two teams to me that kind of look hot and cold on certain days. I think there's a world where XSET could get it done, but there would have to be a handful of parts that are still moving to finally settle in to beat Optic. So I do think Optic probably make it through that upper final. Not easily by any means. I want to root for XSET so bad, man, but it's just hard. It's just hard when you look at it.
Yo, Optic XSET, Optic 100 Thieves for grand finals. I'd be kind of fucking down. What's actually hitting me in the face is if you look at this playoff in the playoff brackets, is that there's a potential that there's no EMEA teams going into the playoffs, especially when it comes down to who's going head-to-head against who. You have Liquid playing against Paper Rex. You have FPX that has to beat Crew to make it through, and you have Fnatic that has to beat 100 Thieves to make it through. So there is a possibility that there is a no EMEA fucking team going into playoffs. And if that's the case, I hope that we have an EMEA guest next week. But that's going to end it for this week, at least. Rawkus, I want to thank you so much. We ended in under that 10-minute time mark that you needed, so you could go actually submit the Sentinels rosters going into the partnership program. So congratulations in advance. And also, thank you so much for your time for the interview and hanging out with us, man. Do you have any shout-outs to give?
No shout outs. Just thanks for having me. It's been awesome. Like, I was supposed to do it last week. Sorry I couldn't come through, but
they don't know that. Chat doesn't know that.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it.
It's okay.
No, thanks so much, man. I really appreciate you, man. And it was a great time to speak with you. And hopefully we'll get you on for some more. Kaplan, of course, always a fucking pleasure. Now that I'm the host, I'm not gonna call you the shit human. You're actually my favorite human being.
What a relief.
Kaplan, what's next in store
Miss
for you, man?
bro.
how's the LFT starting right now for you?
Just hanging out, watching a shitload of champs, and not a lot you can do being LFT while you await franchising news. So just hanging out.
Well, at least we'll get to hang out this week, right? Because there's going to be more champions happening this week. We get to crown our champions as well, and next week we'll run it all down and talk it through. So, chat, thank you so much for hanging out with us. Make sure you guys could follow us here on Spotify, on Apple, and of course on YouTube, because we have our VODs and of course the audios of the podcast going up for your audio listening experiences. And maybe I'm going to just go like that right now, just to end the show. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a good night. And we'll see you next week. Peace.